Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Kidney Coach YouTube channel. I'm naturopath Fiona Chin, co-founder of Genesis and the Kidney Disease Solution and Kidney Coach. And I'm joined again today by one of my favorite guests, the beautiful Nicole Williams. She is from the Mind Growth Garden. She is a mindset coach. And Nicole has spent a lot of time wading, and I'm going to use the word wading, Nicole, through the public health system and hospitals and supporting people who have been diagnosed with chronic health conditions, particularly with kidney disease, but other things as well of how to navigate through hospital systems, through the private healthcare system, how to advocate for themselves and how to manage having a chronic disease. So very well versed in all of those sort of things. So, and especially this time of year, because this has been filmed in a week in the run up to the 2023 Christmas.
Yeah.
So mindset on the forefront or in everybody's mind if they've got space left. So Nicole, thank you so much for joining us, especially this time of year, because I'm sure it's busy for you.
Yes, I am always delighted to be here.
So before we hit record, and I said, what are we talking about? And you said, and I love this topic, you said busyness. And I'm like, perfect. And it's such a big topic, but break it down for me. What is it when you say busyness and what we're covering? What do you mean by that? And what does that look like?
Yeah. It is a big topic, right? So, um, what I mean by busyness is this sense of a completely full schedule, right? Your day is packed. Maybe if you're working, you're moving from one meeting to the next, or you're caring for someone, maybe you're a caregiver, but your day is full, your day is packed. And you have this sense of overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
And you also recognize that you have stopped taking care of yourself in a way that is replenishing.
Oh, I like that. So you said you'd had a lot of clients this week where that had come up. Tell me just more about when you're talking to someone, what is it that makes you hone in on this word busyness? And how would someone sitting listening to this be able to connect with or recognize that, oh, this might be something that's going on for me?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I maybe because it's the holidays and I've connected fairly recently, like in the last few weeks with these clients who from the beginning um have a lot of things on their plate, right? Maybe they have they have children that they're caring for. They have someone who is getting married in their family. They're also working a full-time job, and then they have their chronic condition that they're also managing. And we've said this before. I might be clearing my throat a lot. Sorry, really enjoy.
Oh, good. It's cold over there, so I know
Yeah,
you're
so
all
just
good.
but we've said this before in that our bodies, when we're not taking the time to give ourselves the right kind of rest and address our needs, our bodies will speak louder, right? They'll kind of take over and tell us that we need to rest. And so what came to mind for me is with the holidays, and in speaking again with these clients recently, it's just this idea of my life is already full. I already have all of this going on. I can't put any of this on pause, right? But then I also have this chronic condition that is speaking louder in some instances. And like, what do I do? Yeah, it's that sense of what do I do? How do I manage this?
Yeah, and I sort of said to you before we hit record, I think, and I don't, this is not to take away from men that might have responsibilities as well, but I find women who are caregivers of young children that are then diagnosed with a health condition, and they might still, we find a lot of women now go back to work because the cost of living is so high, plus manage two little children. They're often still running the household. And then they might have an elderly parent that's, needing support. And then you put on top of that a chronic health condition. And I know this was for me, and this is without having two young children. This was just running a great big company,
Mhm.
being super busy at home and having lots of pets. and then having a healthcare condition. And I went, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't have time to manage my healthcare condition. And I am not going to give up all the other stuff, because that is maybe where I derive joy from, or for me, where my self-worth comes from. And so the caring for myself and healthcare condition will just have to go over there.
Yeah.
Is that what you see as well, where people just like, I don't have time for help, and so they don't make time for it, even though it's, like you say, it's the body's way of screaming to say you need to self-care? People are so, well, for me, it was an addiction, addicted to being busy, because maybe they get their self-worth from it, or that's all they know, or actually having to sit in and process a chronic health condition, which is where you come in to help people, is in the too hard basket. So what is it for people? You know, what is it that makes people not put that time aside or feel guilty about it?
Yeah, you hit on a few of them, Fiona. Certainly deriving your self-worth from your work and what you're doing is a big one, right? Finding joy, there's that which is great. But the key that I find as I speak with clients is, if I'm not busy, then I have time to think about what's happening in my body. And that feels overwhelming, that's too much. So sometimes that busyness can be a way of distracting them from what they really need to think about and sit with those feelings. And also, I think too, this way of just kind of keeping their mind running or thinking about something else.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So a client comes into you and you recognize this busyness. What are the strategies, the tools, the tips? Work with me and talk me through how you would work with someone, and what are the kind of conversations that you have, and what can we do, being women or men, if we've got a health condition and, you know, we really, I mean, took me 3 years of long-term meditation and being really self-aware to be able to sit with my uncomfortable feelings around what's going on in my body. So how do you help people manage that and give them permission to not be busy? Because I think that's the big one, right? I needed permission.
Yeah. So I mean, first, I'm definitely a coach and someone who I think it's important to validate their experience. I don't want anything I say today to come off as if I am shaming someone or not encouraging them to continue work or things like that. So I really think it's important to recognize the difficulty that they're in, because, right, just as we've acknowledged, you may have a parent, you're working, there's all types of circumstances happening for everyone. So I first want to make sure I do that appropriately for that individual. I do ask quite a few questions about how they just in general care for themselves. Because when those kinds of when I ask those questions, I can sometimes pick up on certain patterns. So maybe someone was taught as a young age to be a really hard worker, right? And then we start to plant those beliefs. Those beliefs get planted around what working hard means. Or maybe we've seen our parents model a certain type of work ethic or a certain type of lifestyle that's just ingrained in us. So asking certain questions just about their own self-care practices, and when based on their lifestyle, what they appreciate about it, what are areas that they want to change. So just kind of digging deeper for clients in the beginning. But then there are ways in which we can identify small, really, really small steps to take to build in times to take a break. I would talk a lot about rest and what that means for them. How would it feel to spend a half of a day focused on you and maybe not doing your normal routine, or maybe delegating a lot of your responsibilities to someone else. So that's
Mhm.
where we kind of start the process.
And when people come in to see you, what are the sort of, I mean, you've hit on some big points there, so people have to go away and really contemplate, but do you have a sort of map or a journey that you like to take people on when it really comes to, because managing a healthcare, long chronic health condition is something long term, right? So it's not something, I guess, what am I trying to say? It's something that really needs to be addressed, this permission to rest and to look after yourself and really look at the busyness. That really is something that needs to be worked in and become part of the therapeutic strategy, as important as taking herbs and as important as changing your diet, and I want to reiterate this with you on here, Nicole. This is where someone like you is so important, because I know for me, sometimes in the beginning, I can go, okay, well, I'm wired for busyness, so I'll get busy taking my supplements, changing my diet, doing this, doing that. And I'm missing the point of everything that you're saying, which is about taking time to listen to my body and rest and not program everything into busyness. So having someone like you checking in and keeping me accountable, and it's really is such a hugely important part of the healing journey. And for anyone listening, I want to really reiterate this, because if you're a busy person, it's really easy to get busy healing, but
Yeah.
so that won't work if it's busyness that's preventing your healing. So how do you cross that bridge for people, and how would someone like me potentially know when they've mastered, this is the wrong word because it's another busy word, but when they have fallen into or understand that taking this time, this break and reflection is just as important as doing and being busy and taking the supplements and changing the diet? How do you help people with all of that?
Yeah. I think first recognizing your natural response to what's happening in your environment. So, for example, I think it's no secret that I have kids. And so I notice when I can be more snappy or irritable with my children, and they're not doing anything, right? They're just being kids, or they need help with homework or whatever. For me, that's one indication that I'm not taking care of myself emotionally. And
Mhm.
so that's one example. Any difficulties concentrating, changes in your sleep patterns, those are some tall tale signs that you're experiencing overwhelm in your life, and you're likely need to address that. So that's something, again, just to be aware of. I walk through these specific pillars in my coaching practice. We to talk about beliefs and rest, but values is also on that space. And I know that's probably not the traditional way of thinking about addressing mindset. What I have found is that when I ask clients what they value, or to think more about their life in terms of their values, that is the gateway and the doorway for them to completely refocus everything around that value. And what you
Mm.
often find is that it's, time with their family, right? Or building relationships, community, other spending time with others. Um, or the I'll say legacy or purpose, the kind of legacy or purpose in their life is also a big value. Faith also tends to be a big value. And so when you break down the actions needed to address those values, they all require intention, mindfulness. Being rushed and hurried and busy doesn't align with those values. So that's another way in which, again, as we talk and uncover some of the aspects that might be contributing to your busyness, dig into those beliefs, will kind of come back around the corner to your values and understanding what's really important to you.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Because we often use busyness as a way to think that we're validating our values being, well, I need to look after my children and this and that. But like you say, when you dig into it, you're like, well, if you've got your health better, you're going to be around for your children longer. It's like a reframing of those sort of things where we're in a short-term, quick fix kind of society, right? But it's the same thing with our beliefs. It's like that reframing. It's like, well, looking after yourself is looking after your children, and looking after yourself is meaning you can spend more quality time with your family because, as you mentioned, you might not be as snappy, or you're feeling better about things. And it's a funny thing how and I don't know, I don't think it's as prevalent in the US as maybe as Australia. We have this tall poppy syndrome thing, and so that putting yourself first and being seen as selfish is really frowned upon. And so, it's like we've got that English thing that still comes through. It's just like, well, and very much my parents' thing is you just soldier on even when you're sick. That
Right.
was both of my parents came from hardworking English and Scottish families, and that's just, you don't complain and you just soldier on. And unless your limbs falling off, it's a very Monty Python sketch of the Black Knight, unless you've got no arms and legs, you don't complain and you just keep going. And it's, yeah, that push through. And so, yeah, I think all of those it took me a long time to go, like, I've had a bit of a virus this week and I've not gone to the gym every day, which is so unlike me. But my body's like, you need to rest, woman. And it's so unusual for me I'm going to sleep in for an extra half an hour and I'm going to go to bed a bit earlier. And, but I still have to have those talks and say, you're allowed to do this. You've got a bit of a virus, woman. Like, isn't that crazy? Like,
Yeah. It is. It is. Yeah, we're taught to soldier on, to push through. Yeah. And again, those those scenarios and kind of lessons are planted, right, as beliefs that we kind of really hold on to, that determine our action. I think it's also important just to remember that when we are in this heightened sense of this packed schedule and the contribution that has to chronic stress and the elevated our stress hormone, cortisol, and how that really contributes to the impact in our bodies is also a huge part that I think it's easy to forget because we're not we only notice what's happening inside our bodies when a symptom pops up.
So true. Yeah.
So, that stress hormone might be circulating and you may not notice it again until you have, right, that outburst, or you notice, oh my gosh, what's going on with me? I can't sleep at night or something like that is happening.
And we, as Joe Dispenza would say, we get addicted to the hormones of stress. So giving up being stressed and giving up being busy, which for me was tied in with being stressed, it's like coming off heroin or cocaine. Your body's used to those chemicals. So when you start to take them away and your stress hormones reduce, you feel the chemical change in your body and it doesn't feel normal. So you subconsciously seek out behavior to get that hit of adrenaline, of cortisol, because you've become chemically addicted to it. It is bananas how we do that. And it's no different. Some people look for those in foods, and some people look for it in alcohol, and some people look for it in gambling, and some people look for it in being busy. And it's what we don't realize, because we think it's not as damaging or as socially seen as unacceptable, but it's the same thing of being busy and to do that. It's the same thing as going for the drink at the end of the day, or going for that cocaine, or flipping right on your phone to get that dopamine hit. And I think when we start to recognize that and we stop rewarding a society that is always busy, like, no wonder chronic disease is on the rise, because we reward this fast acting, busy, stressed society. That's what's rewarded.
That's right.
So that's what success is. And so no wonder we're seeing a rise in chronic disease. And until we can move out of rewarding that, and people can see that being chronically stressed and snappy and moody and having this, and I know the feeling well, because I know, because I spend so much time in it, and now I'm not in it, that when it's, I call it the wind up feeling, when I start to feel like everything has to be clean and I haven't done this. And I'm like, oh, if I start to feel like that, and I'm like, those chemicals are going up and I'm getting addicted to it, you know. But when we stop rewarding that behavior in our children, in our families, in our society, then, you know, it's a tougher, and it's so insidious and it's so sneaky, this busyness. But like I say, it's the same thing as all those other sort of things. So what tips do you give to people on a day-to-day basis to really try and break that habit of trying to move out? You know, what are things that people that are listening to this, that are recognizing that it might be them? What can they, I know you spoke about a lot of the things about beliefs and values and things like that, but are there things that people can do at home to just try and break that addiction or that pattern?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing is I would suggest that someone look at it's sort of like a time breakdown of their own schedule. So it's taking a really close look at moments throughout your day that where you really get an adequate break. So, you know, people are usually eating on their lunch break, like working, excuse me. Of course, you're eating on your lunch break. You're working while you're eating on your lunch
Yeah.
break, or you're running errands, right? We're always multitasking. When do you get a real adequate break? You're not expected to be anywhere. You are not even engaged in conversation with another person. You're just spending time with yourself and kind of checking in with how you're feeling. So that would be the first step. Because if you notice that, like we said at the beginning, you're running from meeting to meeting, or you're caring for kids and you're going from one thing to the next, then that's an indication that you haven't built that time in for yourself. So that would be the first step to take. The second is, if you do have that time, what do you do with it? Right? And here comes the moment where I have to sit with my feelings, or I have to kind of face how I'm feeling about my chronic condition, or how I'm supposed to manage this in addition to the other things I'm managing. In those moments, I suggest that clients, I want to, so I want to say practice self-compassion, but that's hard. That's hard. In those moments, what I've even done for myself is to almost treat it as if I am having a meeting or conversation with someone else. So I would say things like, you know, I'm feeling really tired right now. I'm really overwhelmed. I'm really stressed. If a friend said that to me, how would I respond to them in that moment? I just flip it. I flip the switch on myself, and I say, okay, Nicole, you're tired, you're stressed out, there's a lot going on. How would I approach, what advice, or, you know, how would I comfort a friend who was saying that to me? So that's how you can immediately do that for yourself in those quiet moments. And then comes in the part of looking more at your own self-care practices and really adjusting your routine in many different ways, so that it's almost built in to your routine, these moments of pause, these moments of rest. I love, you know, my own coach once suggested to me, because we're on our phones all the time, she said, put a reminder on your phone. So I have a reminder that pops up and it says, what do you need in this moment? And that simple question, I'm like, oh yeah, what do I need? Let me check in with myself, check in with my body. I'll also add, when you're checking in with yourself, a really great time to do that is typically early in the morning before you even get out of bed. is almost doing, it's a simple practice of a body scan, really. And you're just kind of checking in with sensations that you're feeling with your body. You can start from your head and go all the way down to your feet. If you feel tension, if you feel pain, if you feel soreness, maybe you feel relaxed, right? It's just kind of checking in each area of your body so that you're intentionally addressing those areas.
Yeah, I think that's great. There's some good tips in there. Anything else you want to add to that?
Um, I think we may have spoken previously too about mindfulness
Hmm.
and just being more present as you're doing different tasks. The other thing with being, you know, busy is that we also, it can be coupled with like rushing through things.
Yep.
Yeah. And when you are forced to be mindful, I shouldn't use the word force, but when you really intentionally call yourself to be more mindful, you naturally have to slow down.
I think that's such a great point. And it's, you know, as you're talking, the thing that just keeps coming up, what I'm hearing over and over again is that part of healing is giving yourself permission to sit and be, and to give yourself permission to heal, not through doing, by being and
Mm,
sitting with yourself and all of those sort of things. And it's really easy when you've got a chronic disease and you're programmed for busyness, like I mentioned earlier, is to just get busy healing. But that doesn't leave space in the body. The body needs space to heal. It needs a break. You know, it
yeah,
needs integration time. It needs that downtime. It can't do it from a continual state of doing. Even if you are being seen to do the right things,
yeah,
you might need an ice bath every morning, and then you go for a run, you eat your good food. But where is the space? It's a space, right? It's creating
space.
this space of nothingness to be, to integrate maybe all the things that you're doing, is what I'm hearing, and how I experienced it for myself. And yes, as you said, you sit in that space and you might have some stuff come up about your beliefs and how you feel about yourself and the feelings. But that's part of the processing and actually leaning into healing. And I think, again, our society is only just moving towards that sort of, or it's starting to talk about that sort of stuff now, especially if you've got underlying trauma and all those things that we know that can contribute to chronic disease. So I think it's really important, and especially this time of year, because it is a particularly busy doing time of year. People are triggered because they're spending time with family. There can be trauma there. And so a lot of people deal with that by being busy, by not being present. And of course, it's the exact opposite of what will bring about healing and change and peace in the body. So thank you for reminding us all, Nicole.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add or share around this whole concept of busyness and healing?
You know, the other piece that came to mind is the start of the new year. I think is a time where we um, naturally want to set resolutions, maybe goals. And I want to say it almost feels like you're sort of wanting to rev up and kind of take off, right? So I think one aspect that's important is for people to recognize that what would it look like if you spent the beginning part of this new year going a little bit slower, taking more time to reflect, thinking more about your own like signs and symptoms of your own stress, how that feels in your body, starting with really simple, small self-care routines. So just going easy. Yeah. There's a saying, and I don't know where I heard this, that you have to slow down to speed up. The
I've heard
idea
this.
of, yeah,
Yeah. And it's so true, isn't it? Because if you don't get that base of what you actually want to build, and you're building from a fast bit, it's like I've got people blowing grass everywhere out there it's a bit like that. You just blow everything into the wind. If you can come down and consolidate what you want, and then focus on that and streamline that, you've got far more momentum going in the right productive direction versus it being blown into the wind and you just momentum for momentum's sake.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love it. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I think again, this is kind of, it's a big topic. It's something that unfortunately in our society, it's reinforced again to be busy, to always be on the go and be moving. And so I just invite people to really think more about, again, what that means for them if they're always busy or have difficulty delegating, and also welcoming them to work with me, or to even just have an introductory call, right? Just to see how coaching and some consistency with speaking to someone about what's happening can really impact and change their lives. So,
And how can people reach you to do that?
yeah, so I am at mindgrowthgarden.com, and I'll share that link. As well, you can email me. It's just Nicole at mindgrowthgarden, and also on Instagram, my main channels of connection right now.
Yeah, and I think just to reiterate to that point, anyone diagnosed with a chronic disease, I think we build a team around us of specialists and doctors and dietitians. And I think what a lot, I would say 90% of people miss is a Nicole, is that person that can give you permission to heal. And I know it's one of the big things that was missing for me. I was good at doing all the stuff that was seemed to be right, but no one really helped me sit down and make the space, number one, to heal, and number two, to give me permission to heal, to slow down, to not have to put everybody else's needs first, and this whole busyness piece and around self-worth. And it's taken me a long time to realize, for me, that was such a big missing slice of the healing journey. So I just want to reiterate how important it is to have a Nicole on your team. For me, she's as important as eating well and exercise, if not more so, because I feel like you don't get the most out of that stuff if you don't have the reflective space to allow your body to heal and integrate those sort of things. That stuff is non-viable if you're always moving through space and time without sitting and just having a break to do that. So, Nicole, thank you for being you and for helping people, give them permission and giving them this feedback and introspection. I think it's, such an important part of healing, is to be able to reevaluate and relook at how we talk to ourselves in our minds, and some of the beliefs and constructs that we've made about being busy and healing and those sort of things, and really taking the time. It's what dis-ease offers us, is the ability to sit down and really reevaluate. And some people are naturally good at that. The bulk of us aren't. The bulk of us try and do it through the same model we've learned the whole time, which is just hitting that hammer on the nail even harder, which is bang harder to heal, and it's like, no. So, yeah, I think the wisdom that you bring to patients is really important. So I'll put all the links in below. So remember, it's mindgrowthgarden.com, and then you can email Nicole and you can have a chat to her to see if she's the right fit for you. And it's Nicole at mindgrowthgarden.com. And I'll put in her Instagram page as well. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll see we follow her as well. Someone's buzzing my phone and it's going to fall off there. So if you want to know more about what we do, head to www.kidneycoach.com. Same thing on Facebook, Instagram, and all things social media. Remember to hit subscribe and like. That way you'll get notified anytime we put up new content. And Nicole, thank you. This will go up end of this year, early January. I think it's perfect time for people to sit and listen to information. And thank you for being such a huge and integral part of our 2023 podcast. I look forward to doing more with you in 2024. If you have questions or topics that you'd like Nicole to cover, as you can see, she's very well versed in all facets when it comes to mindset and healing. Please put them in the comments below and we will let Nicole know. Again, thanks, Nicole. Have a great Christmas and a happy new year.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being part of our community, and for everyone that's listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.